Would you like an opinion on a financial matter you're dealing with? Whether it's about retirement, investments, taxes, or 401ks, Scott Hansen and Pat McLean would like to help you by answering your call. To join Allworth's Money Matters, call now at 833-99-WORTH. That's 833-99-WORTH.
Welcome to Allworth's Money Matters. Scott Hansen.
Pat McLean, thanks for being here.
That's right. Both myself and my co-host, we're both financial advisors, and we spend our weekdays with people like yourself, some weekdays, and we broadcast on the weekends to be your financial advisors on the air. We cover all things financial. We got a good program today, as typical. There's some callers that we're looking forward to chatting with.
Talk about some year-end planning. Let's talk a little bit about HSAs, health savings accounts.
Did I tell you about it? I thought mine was, did I talk to you about that I thought that was drained out?
No.
I'm going to start there.
Yeah, you didn't. You didn't. No, you didn't.
So I get up. All right.
Let's explain what a health savings account is. Let's start there.
Health savings account, I look at it like it's another IRA.
That's
okay. So a health savings account, if you have a high deductible plan, health insurance plan through your employer, which most employers, it's now an option. And depending on your health situation, it may or may not make sense for you. For a lot of people, it makes sense because the concept with the high deductibles is
you have more control.
Yeah.
You can manage
and
it.
even sometimes with the high deductible plans, they might cover an annual physical or something like that. But you can put in several $1,000s a year into contributions.
It's the exact opposite of a HMO, health maintenance organization.
Okay. And so I participated in an HSA since they first came out, whatever, how many years
20 years ago.
Maybe it wasn't quite that long, but whatever, a long time. And it used to be just a couple thousand you could put in. And now it's like, I don't know, $8,000 or $9,000. I forget. It's a combination between what your employer contributes and what you contribute. And you get a tax deduction for what you contribute. It grows tax deferred. If it's used for medical expenses, the withdrawals are tax free. And
so it acts very similar to a Roth IRA.
Correct. Right? It's
right.
And no, an IRA, that's better because you get the tax
you don't
deduction.
Get the deduction.
You get a tax deduction for it. And so I've always...
And you don't have to, you're not required to spend it.
That's correct.
You can pay for your deductibles out of your pocket and allow that to grow.
So how I've done it over the years, I've paid all of my medical expenses out of pocket, and you can just simply hold on to all your receipts that you've paid over the years, and sometime later in life, take a one-time lump sum, and this is all to reimburse me for all these bills I've had. So you can enable these dollars to continue to grow.
And you can invest them like you would a regular IRA or any other investment.
That's exactly right. So, and the way it typically works is you'll have like a bank account. You can get a debit card with it if you want, and I always think that's your best just to let it grow. So I've always let mine grow.
And I have for the last 6-7 years. My wife was not on board when I originally proposed the idea. She's like, why would I do that? But it took a couple years, and then
she saw why it makes some sense.
Yeah, so we invested.
So I've had my account for many years, and it's with the way it's set up, there's like a savings account and an investment account. Two separate accounts, but it's all under one thing, right? And I get up in the morning and I see an email that they attempted to process my electronic funds transfer into my account, but something went wrong or something along those lines.
From the employer, Allworth?
No, from the account.
Okay.
The HSA company said we tried to your request. We struggled with your request to transfer money out of your account to this.
Oh, so like you're afraid someone hacked you?
Someone did.
Okay.
They attempted. So I go online, and it says I'm trying to talk to somebody. First, I'm listening. I'm like, well, how much is in my account? Like $3,000.
So you thought, oh, smokes.
Exactly.
There's
gone. Many times more than 3,000 in there, right? I'm like, oh my goodness. And then I could hear about withdrawals. All these, they had a withdrawal. Anyway, so I finally talked to somebody, and sure enough, someone attempted to do a withdrawal on it. Fortunately, the company had stopped it. But, like most people, you can get lazy with your passwords.
Yes.
I certainly am on a lot of stuff. Like there's a
Yeah.
combination of sorts I use for
Like
lots of things.
Netflix.
That got hacked too, and I had to do. Yeah, that was a mess. But like my financial accounts now, I have very complicated passwords. I know they have two-factor authentication. They'll send you the text or whatever,
which is great.
Yeah, but this I had this own personal. This was my own personal experience.
Is that the first time someone tried to hack one of your accounts?
Yeah, like that. They had submitted a withdrawal request, and the company was about ready to process it, and then they said
something's fishy.
Something's fishy. And fortunately, when I called, they had already caught it. It had already went to some fraud detection department or whatever.
It's amazing.
And I don't know if they got my password somewhere.
I don't know, where do you keep you keep it on your phone, don't you? Dashlane?
Like in the notes section? No. I would never do something like that.
You don't.
Huh?
Really? Yeah.
I've got a couple there.
Yeah.
Not too many.
Hopefully not important ones.
Not my money.
Yes.
Yeah, not my money one.
Yeah.
I do have like my credit card, but I don't. That's my credit card passwords. Actually, you could probably find those. But what are you going to do if you're fraudulent? I'm on the hook for $50. The credit card company, right? Okay. Have you ever had someone hacks use your credit card?
Yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah,
it happens all the time.
They
send you. They'll call and say, "Hey, are you in Shebogan at a Home Depot trying to buy a power tool?"
Yeah, because I typically go to buy power tools in Shebogan. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, so
let's want to take some calls.
Yeah, we'll take some calls, and then we're gonna we'll talk with Vicki Bogner as well. But let's take some calls. We're talking with George in Colorado. George, you're with Allworth's Money Matters.
Hi, how you doing?
Hi, George.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
So my question is, I have a younger wife who's about 22 years younger than me, and I just want to see if my plan for her after I'm gone kind of makes sense.
Good.
I always learn something from you guys. So
how old are you, George?
63.
Okay.
And she's 40. Well, I'm turning 63 this month. Anyways, so I'll give you some information. I get about $124,000 a year in pensions. 60% of that is taxed. I could start taking Social Security now, which they say is about a little over $2,000, or wait till 70 and it's $3,600. My wife, she can, after I'm gone, she can collect up to $72,000. It looks like in guaranteed pensions, and then when she turns 60 to 67, looks like $18,000 to $34,000 a year from what I can see online.
Okay.
From where?
We have
from the pension.
Well, it's part of the survivor benefits plan.
Got it.
It's a commingled with Social Security benefit.
Got it.
Into full retirement age. Okay.
Well, the $72,000 is survivor benefit plans, and then another program through the VA. So there's that. And then in addition, when she gets to 60, she can start collecting Social Security, depending if she wants to wait or need it or not.
Is this a state pension?
Safety worker.
Federal, military, retirement. And then,
all of it?
Well, the SBP part. And then the VA, if you die from something you acquired during the military, or you have a high enough rating, then your spouse gets an additional $2,000 a year. It looks like, a month.
Were you married? Were you married when you took the pension?
I was married. No. Yes, I was. Sorry.
You were married
a long time, like 18 years. So.
Okay, it's to your wife.
Yeah.
Who's 41. You were married when you took the pension.
Right.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. I was just wondering if we should ask for a reset, and we can't. Okay, keep going.
Okay. And so, I have about $150,000 in life insurance. Can't get any more. They won't sell me anything else. We have about $200,000 in IRAs, $60,000 for my wife, $140,000 for me, which kind of planned on just leaving for her 20 years down the road because we don't really need money now. We have that invested and thought about converting that to Roth slowly. We have 80 acres of mixed agricultural recreation land, and the value of that is hard to predict, but it could be a lot or it could be not. And we have a home in a foreign country, so that's kind of where we're at.
And where are you living now?
Colorado.
And do you own a home there?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And is that
It's not paid for.
Say that again?
That's not paid for. The land's someplace else.
Okay, tell us about the primary residence.
It's a home in Colorado. It's worth about, I don't know. They say it's worth about $700,000, and we owe about $440,000 on it.
If you were to pass away, would your wife keep that?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, she would get that yearly money, and then she would. I mean, we got a great interest rate when we got it, but also I'm thinking she could, use the life insurance until she sold, the land if she needed to pay it off.
How much is the land worth?
He doesn't know.
Well, I think it's worth $400,000 to $700,000 based on, how you split it up and how you sell it. It's in a land, is very variable. But
you get hit by a bus today, or like Pat likes to say, you get hit by an Amazon van because there's much more prevalent.
Right? The chances of you getting hit by a bus are
that might be unfair to Amazon. The delivery van, because they're everywhere now.
That's right, and you can't even
for whatever
tell.
reason. We had 4 different Amazon packages delivered yesterday.
4 different times.
I don't know if there are 4 different times, but what? Who's ordering what? Anyway.
Is that none of them were even
No,
for
of
you.
course not. I'm like, this is getting out of control.
But you didn't say anything, did you?
No, but it's dangerous walking on the streets because all the delivery vans. Anyway, that's a stupid side story. Something happens to you today, your wife's going to be fine because of the survivor pension she's got. It's a good-sized pension. In addition to what you had stated, between the IRAs, the life insurance, you get that. I mean, the mortgage could be paid off if that was the choice at some point in time, or there's quite a bit of equity in the house, and there's equity in that land. So,
and that ignores. You said you own property overseas as well, correct?
Yeah, that's probably only worth $50,000.
Okay.
She could go.
So
there.
I think so. 2 things. One is like, if something happened to you today, yes, she'd be fine financially. If she went and talked to a financial advisor that said, look, you're going to be fine financially. The second thing is, from a realistic standpoint, there's not a lot of other planning we can do unless you said, I want to have a lesser lifestyle today to ensure that my wife is better off when I'm gone. Other than that, there's...
No, she's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's perfectly fine. I mean,
yeah,
more than fine.
I think you're good. I would.
And do you have children from this marriage?
Oh, yeah. We got 2 teenagers. One's getting set to go to college pretty quick, and the other one will probably go to college, too. One's a senior in high school. The other's a sophomore.
Yeah.
And are you working now?
No, I haven't worked since 2023.
All right. How is that? I mean, being home with those 2 teenagers.
Not a normal retirement.
No, well, they're gone. They're teenagers. And then we moved to Colorado to get around.
How old are you? You haven't collected Social Security yet, right?
No, I'm debating.
Yeah, but
you want
kids,
to. You want to start it right now.
Your kids could be collecting it.
Because your kids, you get it for the benefit of the kids.
They don't get anything.
Oh, they certainly do.
If you're over age 60, collecting 62, collecting benefits. If you are collecting Social Security benefits and you have
get half
dependent
of it.
children, they get benefits.
Yeah.
What?
Yes. Aren't you glad you called?
Man.
That's what we came at the very end of the call.
I always learn something from you guys.
You want to start it tomorrow.
Well, the youngest
Can you
one.
still back?
I don't think they'll back pay it, but you start it tomorrow. It doesn't matter as long as they're under age 18.
How old are they?
One's 15. She turned 15 in February. The other one is 17.
Go!
And isn't there some additional benefit if they go to college too? It goes.
I don't know the answer to that.
I
don't know the answer to that. Hang up this phone. Get in your car. Drive down to the Social Security Administration. Apply for today.
Well, last time they almost wanted to put me in jail. Well, they didn't say that.
Well, that's a different story altogether.
I don't know if we want to go there.
You're going to have to call another radio show to discuss that. But no. So
Yeah,
I thought, let me ask you something. I thought you only get Social Security for your kids if you die like the survivor.
If you're on retirement benefits and you have minor children, minor dependents, like we've encouraged people that
adopt their grandkids.
Yes, because it's kind of rare being in your 60s with teenagers. But there are people that are taking care of their grandkids, and will help. We show them the numbers. Like if you adopt them, and now they're your children, not just a grandkid, then you can start receiving Social Security benefits as long as they're on receiving Social Security.
That's right. You want Social Security right now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah. Now,
That's something I didn't know.
Well, that's why you called.
That's why you
appreciate
called.
the call, George. And by the way, if you're listening and thinking, why are these, from a taxpayer standpoint, I certainly don't like the concept, but the reality is we all navigate whatever Congress, the game they set up for us. We go to play Monopoly with my kids. These are the rules. Whether we like the rules, not the rules, these are the rules. Can we swap houses to get a hotel? All that kind of garbage. Congress sets up the rules. It's our opportunity to
Let me
navigate
ask you a question.
rules.
When you're swapping a hotel or a house
I haven't
for a
played
hotel
Monopoly in a decade
with
or more.
Monopoly, do you explain to your kids how the 1031 exchange works?
Actually, I take the house when they're not looking.
I tell you what, Scott, I grew up in a family of 5 kids, 4 boys. There was never a Monopoly game that didn't end up in a fist fight. Never. And we played it.
A fist fight.
A fist fight. I mean, not a fight, not an argument.
Beat the crap out of my brother. Why? Because you land on Park Place again?
You're starting to win. You're kind of rubbing it in their face a little bit. You're pushing it. Next thing you know, the board's in the air. Fists are flying.
Where are you in the relation to the other boys?
I was third.
Oh, right in the middle then.
Yeah. And then Doug Malo, the kid down the street. Holy smokes.
All right.
What do you mean, all right?
Wait, we're going to move on.
Okay. Little therapy here for me.
I think it'll take a little more than that. Let's talk now with Alicia in Colorado. Hi, Alicia. You're with Allworth Money Matters.
Hi. Thank you,
Alicia.
and good morning.
Good morning.
So I'm, just to give you a background, I'm a 62-year-old federal employee. I'll be retiring in 4 months. I have, I think, a lot of things in order. I have a trust set up. I have lifetime long-term care, and I have lifetime medical through the federal government. I have $1.4 million in my TSP. My question is, and I get rental income that basically covers my mortgages, and my investment property brings in enough money to cover expenses in mortgages. I refinance to take out money out of my investment property for cost runs for a remodel of my primary home. My money I'm planning to leave to family members and a significant amount to charity. My question is, should I start taking, well, I was told by someone about Social Security optimization.
Okay.
And they suggested that I start taking Social Security at age 62 and then turn it off at 67 and take money out of my TSP if necessary. Then they said I should restart Social Security at age 70 to quote unquote maximize Social Security. And I really don't understand how that's going to work, because it seems like if I take Social Security for those years and start it early, it's still going to reduce the dollar amount of the benefit that I receive at age 70.
It will.
But if I did take Social Security, and also I wouldn't take it until 63 at this point. If I did take Social Security at this point, what I do is use that money to pay off the mortgage on my investment property early, which is at a 7% interest.
Okay, well let's
7%.
Yeah, let's step back for a second here. What is the value of your primary residence?
I'd say at this point it's $1 million.
And what do you owe on it?
I owe 370 maybe. I haven't looked at it.
And what's the interest rate?
It's 2.875.
Okay, and you have one investment property or multiple investment properties?
Well, I rent out. My house is set up as a duplex, so I rent out my basement. And so I bring in, let's see, that brings in $27K per year.
Okay. And then your investment property.
Okay. The mortgage is $1,736 per month, including property taxes and insurance, and it brings in $27,960, I think.
Okay.
Let me calculate.
Oh, that's
that
okay. That's
again.
close enough. That's okay.
Okay.
And what's the value of the property?
It's worth, I'd say, between $500 and $550.
And what did you pay for it?
I paid $79,000.
Okay.
And what do you owe on it now?
I owe $157,125, but I've been paying extra principal since even when I had the HELOC, because it had gone to 10% and it was interest only.
Okay, and it's not a HELOC now; it's a fixed rate.
No. Now it is a 30-year.
A 30-year fixed. Okay,
but I brought that down by paying extra. I'm about 10 years ahead.
Okay, and what money do you have in the bank?
I have $43,000 in emergency fund.
And are you 100% confident you're not going to work after you retire?
Except for things that I lose money on. I'm kind of dealing antiques, and I've made money 1 year.
Okay.
Is that where you want to spend your time, though?
No, actually, I want to spend my time traveling and volunteering.
And how much will your monthly pension be?
It's going to be, it's weird because I've had estimates. It seems to be, it's going to be between $40,000 and $45,000.
How much do you earn at your job now?
Right now, I just got a bump in pay, so I earn $145,000, but I started at around $30,000.
What was your pay last year before the bump? I'm trying to get an understanding of what you've been living off.
141.
So this is interesting. I'm running this thing through my head. So the first thing I would look at is,
and how many kids do you have?
None.
Oh, no.
And you're
children.
not married.
No, I'm not married. No kids. Basically, my money will go to my nephew, but a lot of that, most of it is going to go to charity. I'll see that he's taken care of, as far as paid off mortgage.
Obviously, when you do that, you name the beneficiary, the IRAs, or the thrift savings.
What about a charitable remainder trust with that rental house?
I'm sorry?
I'm talking to Pat here. I'm thinking about.
Huh.
I mean,
because you've got
one concept is you take that rental house and you structure it in a charitable vehicle where it transfers to the charity sells it, avoids the capital gain, you receive an income.
Everything is in the trust.
Understand that. No, we're talking about something completely different. It's a charitable remainder trust, and it's a tax.
And there's different flavors of
yeah,
them.
And you sound charitable. The problem is, Scott, it's $400,000 would be this. And what did you say you paid for it?
Nothing. 79.
Yeah, I wouldn't. The cost of administrating a charitable remainder trust over the next few years relative to the tax savings?
I don't know. I mean, and depending on how deep she is with some more nonprofit she is, they could structure it all and take care of all the costs. There's no cost at all, and she suddenly gets a check every month and doesn't have to think about it.
Now, why would I get a check every month?
Well, because of how these charitable remainder trusts are actually structured.
Okay. I'm not familiar with those.
I mean, you have $400,000 of equity there. You could receive an income stream for the rest of your life. It's going to be greater than what you have now, and you don't have to think about it.
That's right. Huh? Because you're only making
I mean,
$1,000.
to your point, it's 400,000, not 4 million. And oftentimes these are strategies used with larger states. But given your situation, you got a nice pension, you're going to have Social Security, you got $1.5 million in your 401k, TSP. I would think that So you're asking. I wouldn't take Social Security right away. You've got some other kind of planning. I think you've got some other strategies to consider. I don't like the 7% mortgage on the rental.
I hate it.
Yeah.
I absolutely hate it. I would look at actually taking money out of the thrift savings plan and using that money in the bank immediately to pay that down. And you say, well, I want the money in the bank for emergencies. You could get at the thrift savings plan as fast as you get the money in a bank. So it's just a taxable event.
It's a taxable. You got to be careful.
So the 7% is what bothers me. And I would Scott, I would say, why wouldn't you start Social Security? Why wouldn't you drain out some of that thrift savings plan in one tax year and start Social Security in the next? In order to get rid of this mortgage. It's the 7% that crushes me.
Is it an easy property?
About $60,000 at the beginning of next year, and using a significant amount of that to also. I was thinking of paying down the mortgage, since I won't need all that money.
I would explore the charitable remainder trust that Scott mentioned. It never even crossed my mind, but because of the size of it.
You could take that rental.
So explain what a charitable remainder trust is and how they actually.
And there's different flavors of them. So
lots of different flavors.
Yeah, you take typically it's a property that is, or an asset that has a lot of gain in it, that someone would like to dispose of. They don't want to pay the gain. Number one. Number two, they are highly charitably motivated. And it doesn't work if you're not highly charitably motivated.
And it probably is, right, because your yield on this for the amount of equity that you're actually in this house
not much.
is it's what?
By the time you have 2%? A repair or two, there's
2%.
Not a lot left.
2%.
There's not a lot left. And so it's transferred to a charity. You receive a tax deduction, not of the full value, because it's calculated, because the charity actually doesn't get the proceeds until either at your death or at a period of time. You could structure it for 8 years and defer your Social Security. I'm just throwing things out, different planning ideas out. But with that, the charity then sells the property. They pay no capital gains because they're a nonprofit. And in exchange, they give you an income stream, a monthly income stream, either for the remainder of your life, charitable remainder trust, or for a period of time. There's different ways to structure things. And so there's a lot of planning techniques. Your Social Security is one of them. And every once in a while you hear us talk about like the benefit of doing a true financial plan with a true financial advisor, running through all these different scenarios. I think it's something for you to consider.
And by the way, many times a financial advisor will recommend life insurance to actually replace.
But you don't need that.
But you don't need that. That's why it actually makes the most sense, is because you're going to leave this to charity anyway. And what you're worried about is cash flow and tax implications. I think the charitable remainder trust.
You're a single woman, relatively young at retirement. You got a great pension. You're going to have Social Security as well. You got money saved in your retirement. The only thing we don't like in your portfolio is this rental with this high interest. You got a lot of equity that you're not getting any income, and now's the time in your life for income.
So, do you have to have a if to set up a charitable remainder trust? Do you have to pick the specific charity?
Yes. Yes.
There's pros and cons to them.
A donor advised fund.
What a donor advised fund? Well, the donor advised fund, you're not going to get any income, and you need income.
You give it all away.
You give it all away. Okay. So, donor advised fund would make sense here if you didn't need any income. And I've advised
people on transferring property to donor advised funds. They can work great, but you're given. We're not.
You need income.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're not stating give away this property today to some charity.
That's right. We're saying, is there a bet? And if
is there a way to get rid of the mortgage and have more income off the $400,000 of equity you have in this house?
And if you didn't do that, it may make sense to sell the property.
There's a lot of different planning things to look at.
It may make sense to take money out of the thrift savings plan and pay it down. But even then,
even if you did an exchange to a lesser property. The boot's taxable. You'd have some taxable implications there, but not on the entire thing. There's some ways. There's a lot of different planning techniques that I think Social Security is the last, at least of your planning opportunities.
Yes, correct.
So
I'd explore the CRT. Thank you, Scott.
they're not used that common. I mean, they're not
that
but
common.
Given what I don't know you that well. We don't know you that, but given what you said thus far, it could be a pretty interesting solution for you. So anyway, really glad you called, and hope you
Enjoy retirement.
Engage with a good financial advisor to run through some of these scenarios with you. Okay, we want to have we just thought with the elections and whatnot, we would have a guest on our program, Victoria Bogner, and Victoria is our
Director of Client Experience.
Director of Client Experience, and she's also a chartered financial analyst.
Yeah, she's much more than our Director of Client. She interacts with the advisors and the clients in order to make the interface as enjoyable and as efficient as possible.
Yeah, and frankly, and before we have her on, she joined us through a merger with one of her firms where she was the CEO and their chief investment officer. And
a practicing advisor.
Kind of first assignment as Allworth is connecting, making sure we get awesome client service, awesome advisor experience, and the whole kind of connectivity between them. That's kind of her focus. And because she's highly analytical, smart, good communicator, she's been perfect for the job at that. And so, Victoria, thank you for taking some time to join us.
Yeah, it's great to be back.
And we're going to talk, we're on because...
Well, this is I said before we dug into this, Scott, I said we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the Trump, what we're starting to,
yes.
And I said, this is just, look, I go and read the reviews from our show where people rate them. Have you ever, read the reviews? If we mention Democrat or Republican, the all kinds of negative stuff comes out in these reviews. Like, oh, I can see through you. We know whose side you're on. This kind of garbage. Go ahead, write the review. I shouldn't say I don't care because I do care.
Also, I know with Allworth, as we've led the company over the years, it was always we're apolitical. Money's not red, money's not blue, money's green.
That's right.
And that's what our political focus has been. Anytime we're dealing with clients, it's not.
But
and the reality is, like, we've got clients. We all have our own values.
That's right.
And I have clients that their values don't quite line up with mine, and that's fine.
Children.
But I also highly value serving them very well, and I have a fiduciary obligation to do what's in their best interest.
That's right.
Their best interest.
But look, tax law drives a lot of investment decisions, and most certainly financial planning, because you have to view financial planning through a prism of tax.
Of course.
You have to. You don't have any choice. So
that's why we talked about HSAs at the beginning.
That's right.
I would not use it if it wasn't for the tax benefits.
That's right. Right? Yeah. The investment is the investment. It's the vehicle.
Yeah, and I have the same investment I could own anywhere.
That's right. So we asked Victoria to come on today to talk a little bit about what we can kind of anticipate from this new administration.
I can tell you exactly what the next 4 years are going to look like.
Perfect.
Just kidding. Okay, well, first of all, I think before this election was finalized, a lot of questions were around the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017, commonly known as the Trump tax cuts, because they were pretty significant, and a lot of those are set to expire at the end of 2025. But now that Trump is back in office, the GOP controls or will likely control both legislative branches. It's very possible that we'll see efforts to either extend those cuts or even make them permanent. But of course, Washington permanent doesn't mean forever. It just means until the next administration takes charge of it. But even if these tax cuts are extended, as you say, there's so little we can control, right? We can't control inflation. We can't control the stock market, but we can control, to a certain extent, the taxes we pay. It is a lever that we can pull. And this is something that you should start thinking about in your 40s and 50s. Don't wait till you're 65 and say, I want to retire now. How do I manipulate my assets so I'm not paying so much in tax? You're setting yourself up for much greater success later if you're thinking about this in your 40s and 50s with a good financial planner, so that you can adjust as laws and situations change, But especially if you're a high-income earner, tax planning should be your top priority.
Right. You should have a diversified tax strategy, very similar to a diversified portfolio, right?
Exactly.
Which means some of the money is in pre-tax, some is in post-tax, some of it's in Roth, some of it is a depreciable asset maybe. So what do we expect? Do we think that there'll be, they will continue with this? Do you think there's going to be more tax cuts?
There could potentially be even more tax cuts, tax advantages, but also the flip side of this is tariffs, trade disputes, right? Because we have the taxes that if they get extended, in large part, that will be good economically. That increases consumer spending. It will increase GDP. But on the flip side of that, if we have tariffs, trade disputes, then that is going to put a dampener on GDP. That's going to raise prices. It's going to raise inflation. So there are two sides to the coin here of how you manage your assets and your tax liability. It's not just about what is happening in the tax picture situation, but it's also what's happening in other policies and legislation, which we have an amazing investment committee that pays attention to all of that. But you need to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, and even with these trade, I've always been a free market guy from as when I was in high school. With my paper route, essentially, I was free market. I believe that we need some sort of rules that we agree to abide by the rules, and then let's let the market decide.
Well, kinda. I'm kind of that way, but I don't think that strategic assets in the U.S. should be owned by foreign corporations.
Okay, so that's an easy one. Yeah.
Okay.
Strategic assets, but even the whole trade imbalance, the trade deficits, and the tariffs. I'm curious about your perspective because there's different perspectives here, and some say this is just going to cause inflation. It's going to raise prices for everybody. It's going to slow the economy down. What's your take?
Well, here's my opinion, and I have read many different economists' takes on this, but at the end of the day, tariffs can be used as a tool to be able to negotiate trade agreements. It's similar to what happened in 2018, 2019. And what's so interesting about this is back then, this was what everybody was talking about. And I bet if I asked you what happened with trade tariffs in 2018, very few people could tell me, but that's all anybody cared about. But what Trump did is he threatened tariffs of about 25% on billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods. And many of those tariffs did go through. And then if you remember, China retaliated by putting tariffs on our agriculture and our soybeans. And then we had to subsidize farmers because they were impacted. And overall, it was a drag on GDP. It was negative. It did lead to phase one of our trade agreement with China, which, by the way, just objectively speaking, COVID happened. And so that trade agreement pretty much went to the wayside because everybody was just dealing with their own COVID mess. But long story short, tariffs usually are not a good idea. You want as much free trade as possible because tariffs, there's a misconception. It is actually the buyer of the goods who's paying the tariff, right? So if we're charging 60% tariffs on Chinese imports, China isn't paying that. The buyer,
the consumer,
the American company is paying that.
Yeah,
or it's that on to the consumer, right?
Or it's pushing the price up of a particular product, whether it comes from China or not.
Yes, exactly. So the issue is then that does increase prices. It decreases competition. That passes on to the consumer. It increases inflation, and then that increases interest rates because the Fed needs to get that under control. And so it's usually a negative spiral. You want as much free trade as possible.
But I don't think he's going to – I think it's going to be the same story as last time. He's going to threaten, and then come to the table and negotiate.
Yeah. So
there's no way we can have 100% tariffs or 60% tariffs on anything. That's a no-go. That would.
Are you saying Trump might have exaggerated a statement about something?
It's
so let's talk about.
I know he's not known for that, but
Let's talk about interest rates for a bit because the bond market particularly the day following the election, the stock market was skyrocket high, and bond market had a pretty significant sell-off on the longer-term bonds. So what's transpired with interest rates, and what can we expect maybe over the next several months?
That was interesting because right after Trump won the election, interest rates dropped. So as interest rates go down, that means bond prices go up. They're inversely related. But that's starting to level out now because investors are processing what these potential policy changes could mean, the biggest concern being inflation. So if Trump extends the 2017 tax cuts, that's good. It'll increase spending. It'll boost GDP in the short term. Of course, that will rack up more of our debt. But if this is met with higher tariffs, companies could see higher production costs. They're going to pass that on to consumers. It's going to lead to more inflation. And something that investors need to realize is that as of now, the Federal Reserve is an independent part of this equation. So Trump doesn't control interest rates. It's the Federal Reserve that does. And one of their mandates is to keep inflation under control. So if inflation starts to get out of control, one of the levers that the Fed will likely pull is to start to increase rates again. So it's important for investors to then keep those factors in mind because shorter duration bonds could help with that interest rate risk, but bonds still play an important role in keeping things stable. So important that if you have a financial planner, and I hope you do, that this is something that they're keeping a pulse on and paying attention to in your portfolio.
And so basically not reach for the long bond, stay a little bit shorter on the bond, and you're not giving up much yield, if any at all.
Right now, the yield curve is pretty flat. I mean, when you go far out on the long end, you're not making enough of a heightened return to lock your money up into that in those longer durations. So
and
it
the
makes
interest
sense
rate
to
risk.
stick with more intermediate and short term for now.
Yep.
And with respect to Social Security and Medicare, now you're not clairvoyant, but we all know that eventually, and it's getting closer to the point where Congress is going to have to do something, right? Are you expecting anything to come of the Trump White House in this area?
Well, Trump has said he wants to protect these programs, but as you say, with increasing budget pressures, we might start to see some talk about raising eligibility ages or adjusting benefits. They might raise the retirement age. They might tweak the cost of living adjustments. That's the kind of change that we would see.
Yeah.
And we've seen it in parts of Vicki. We've seen it in parts of Europe, have we not?
That's right. And those are easy levers to pull, but any major reform is going to take time. So the best thing to do is to plan based on what we know, but be ready to adapt if things do change. And for younger workers, personally, when I run plans for clients under 50, I just assume a 25% reduction in Social Security benefits just to see how their plan holds up, because I think that is a realistic worst-case scenario. When we look at Social Security, if it was cut by 25%, it would actually be fully funded as of right now. So I think that's a realistic.
That's what statutory will occur in 10 years if nothing is done. Right?
That's right.
Once we
and
go bust.
Medicare is a whole nother story. I mean, that is so. That is going to be the bigger issue and the bigger problem because it is much more underfunded than Social Security. It's a big problem.
Well, and it'll be interesting to see with RFK Jr. and with what he actually does in that area. But when we've got roughly 20% of our economy is in healthcare, right? It's
that's right.
It's a big number.
It is a massive piece of our.
It's a big number. It's a big number.
Well, thanks for taking a little time to join us, Vicki.
Absolutely. Thank you.
As always, thanks for being part of the team, and your wisdom is always appreciated.
Yeah, we like Vicki.
Yes, she's smart.
Victoria, Vicki, both.
Yes, super smart. This RFK thing, quite frankly, Scott, this food pyramid, they need to get rid of that. They need to quit subsidizing corn.
Yeah, all those. Okay.
Yeah, just flat
There's
out.
lots of things that need to happen, but the running the government's a little different. Anyway,
Good point.
We're not going. I don't want to talk about policy stuff, government policy anymore. It's like. Anyway, I think
we're done.
I think we're about done. So anyway, it's been great being here with you. I believe next week Thanksgiving's coming up. Hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving. We'll be taking the week off and have a best of for you next week. But if you've liked this program,
please go ahead and
give us a
rate
review
it
and send it to a friend as well. So this has been Scott Hansen and Pat McLean of Allworth's Money Matters.
This program has been brought to you by Allworth Financial, a registered investment advisory firm. Any ideas presented during this program are not intended to provide specific financial advice. You should consult your own financial advisor, tax consultant, or estate planning attorney to conduct your own due diligence.